Welcome, everyone. Today we are talking all about boundaries. You know, that thing that like keeps you safe so that you don't burn out? Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. And I've got two awesome guests with me today. I've got Elizabeth Hanson with us, and she's going to be Hansford. I don't know why I said Hanson. I live on Hanson Drive, and I think that's what was coming in. Hansford. Elizabeth Hansford is coming to join us. She's a Spanish tutor, and we've got Audrey Vadnais who is going to be joining us, and she does reading tutoring and handwriting instruction as well online, which is so cool, you guys. So stay tuned and learn all about boundaries. And here we are. Yeah. Boundaries. Such a fun topic, right? Like it's like discipline and it sounds like a really bad thing when you first say it. Like boundary sounds like it's like locking me up or tying me up in some kind of way. But boundaries actually keep us really healthy and safe. So before we go into our topic, let's share a little bit more about who you guys are. Audrey, tell us about you and your tutoring business.
Yeah, I'm Audrey and I'm from audreytutors.com and I tutor kids in reading and I emphasize the handwriting because of the research that shows how that's correlated with reading fluency. And so, yeah, I've been doing that for the past 2 years. So,
Yay, I love it. And we've got Beth. Beth, tell everybody who doesn't know who you are.
Hi, everybody. I'm Beth. I'm from Ohio and I tutor Spanish, mostly for high school students, also some elementary schoolers as well who are just starting their journey with Spanish. But I focus in on those high schoolers who are struggling in their high school classes.
Woo! And I'm Joanne Kaminski. I'm an online reading tutor, been doing it since 2010. I love being able to take those kids that are struggling with phonics and comprehension and just kind of reading those simple books and help move them into reading chapter books and get them really being able to have that lifelong learning for that desire to want to read. And I'm also your online tutor coach. So I've been doing tutor business coaching since 2012, and it's now just taken a whole new realm and world of its own. And I'm so excited because you guys, we're going to be talking about something that's really hard, and that is boundaries. Because when there are boundaries, we have to stick to them. And so we're going to start with those time boundaries to begin with. I think one of the most important things to do is actually set office hours. Have you guys had the opportunity to set office hours? And if you have, how has that helped?
I have some health issues, so I've had to create my own unique boundaries. So
Mhm.
I set a rule. So I finally got my schedule where I don't work on Fridays anymore. And so Fridays is either a crash day or it's a makeup day. So like if I have to take it more easy and all I can do is show up for my students during the week, I may be doing behind the scenes stuff on Friday. If I did a lot during the week and I just have the day off, or if I had to say, nope, I can't work in between sessions, then, but I have to rest on Friday too. That's also my rest day. So it allows me to take care of myself, but then also move forward with my business. And that's been life changing on like not doing Friday and Saturday classes because at one time I was doing it 7 days a week and it was
Yeah.
just too much to juggle. And so just saying, this is when I'm available and then making myself stick to it was the biggest challenge, but it's so
Yes.
freeing once you can do that. So
I know, because we have the freedom to work whenever we want, and so we work more. Like
yeah,
we look
right.
like I'm gonna work
Good.
less. Like, I'm gonna work less. This is all about time boundaries. Like, it's all about, like, freedom and my business and flexibility, and then it's like we're like, "Oh, well, I could work on this, or I could just, like, touch up this one thing, or I could do this, or I could work on this report, or I could" if whatever it is, it feels like we're always being, like, crunched by time, and it always feels like we could always be doing more, and so we fill that time with doing a lot more. Beth, how about you? Have you set clear office hours for yourself?
I am, to be honest, still working on that a little bit, but I have definitely set office hours in terms of how late I'm willing to work. And
Yes.
as you know, Joanne, I used to, well, at the very beginning of my business, I wanted to, kind of take anyone and everyone, and, take students when I would, when they would request to work with me, and, kind of be that on-demand tutor. Don't do that to yourself. Students will come when you're able to work with them. But anyway, so I would be, you know, I would sign up to work with a student at midnight, and then I would also sign up to work with a student at 4:30 in the morning, and it was not sustainable at all.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. You're
and I
exhausted, you're
completely
tired, you can't give the best to the student when you're under those kinds of
right.
conditions. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not good for you, it's not good for the students. Yeah, it's just not good all around. So I no longer do that. I'm done working by, I think, yeah, my latest students are at 8 o'clock now. So I'm done working by 9, and I just I enjoy the rest of my evening.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's a lot better for me, and the only reason I even work at 8 is because I do have those high school students.
Mhm. They can
And
work
they have
later.
activities
Mhm.
and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works well.
Yeah, and I was just like you, Audrey, in the beginning where I work 7 days a week. Like, if they could take if I was getting the work, I was gonna work. I mean, I'm a hard worker. That's as teachers, we
Mhm.
are. We're used to working, whatever conditions we are surrounding us, and I realized I didn't actually like working with clients on Sunday. So I would work with clients, like, starting from 4 and go into the evening, like 4 to 8, I would work. But all day I was thinking about my students, all day. And I was like, I don't like this. Like, I'd rather just have a Sunday that I could just hang out with my family and not have to worry about it. Or if I want to relax or do something, I can. So a couple of years ago, I stopped working weekends completely. I have put a no work zone on the weekends. The only exception I make to that is doing like impact or something like that. But other than that, I'm not working. I can choose to work on things if I want to, but
Mhm.
there is nothing forcing me that I have to show up for an appointment to do. And then Fridays is also kind of a catch-up day for me because I do get kind of busy Monday through Thursday, and sometimes I can't, like, catch, all the emails or all that kind of stuff, and then I can go into my weekend feeling like, "Okay, I've done my best to catch up this week with all the emails and everything that I have. I can go into my weekend without that worry, without that stress, without any of that kind of stuff." And that's really, really helped me with my business as far as like setting office hours. But if you're looking to work like a traditional 8-hour day, you guys, then set a traditional 8-hour, slot for yourself. Like, if you want to work from like 12 to 8, then set that on your calendar. Those are going to be your work hours so that you can still have a life in between there. Um, how do you guys communicate your availability to your clients to ensure that you have the dedicated time for both work and personal life?
I personally,
Oh,
no, go ahead, Audrey.
okay. So I just whenever we set up the time, I tell them what times I'm available. So I say I
Yes.
have these days, and I don't give them options. Sometimes people say something about Friday or Saturday and I ignore it and then tell them my other options, or I just tell them, nope, that's not available, like so I really kind of not don't even open it up as an option. And then if they ask, I just kindly say, okay, no, I can't. I know in the beginning when my goal, like I had to pay for living, I was taking on everybody. But then as my client load grew, I was able to set more and more
Mhm.
boundaries within that to get to my ideal goal. And
Mhm.
so, yeah.
I always scheduled too, like when I was at that place, when I was still like, I wasn't booked solid yet. I would always
Mhm,
schedule them right around somebody else's tutoring time.
exactly.
So if I had a 4 o'clock student, then that meant I had a 5 o'clock open availability or a 3 o'clock open availability.
Hmm.
And that's what I would be
Yeah.
looking to fill so that it wasn't like all sporadic. Like, I work an hour, then I have 2 hours off, and then I work another hour. That feels too choppy
Mhm.
for me. But this is your business, you guys, so you guys get to you get to organize this any way that you want to and feels right for you. Just know like what's worked and what's not worked for us and why, because that's going to help you design what time boundaries work for you. How about for you, Beth? How do you let people know about your time boundaries?
Yeah, it sounds like I do something very similar. I cover it right in the consultation. As soon as they've said yes, I'd like to get started with tutoring, I say great, you know, these are, you know, the days I have available. You know, what, you know, do these times on these days work well for you?
Hmm.
Or, you know, what times of days, you know, because I'm still building a little bit, and so I say what times generally work well for you. Is it morning or afternoon? You know, because I sometimes work with homeschoolers and that kind of a thing. So I'll sometimes do that. And then I say, if they say morning, for example, I say, great, I have Wednesday and Friday morning available, just as an example.
Hmm.
And you know, then we go from there.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I've
that
had
kind of
two
a thing.
sometimes like some clients they want to challenge me on my boundaries a little bit. I had a guy who wanted me to work with his kid 7 days a week. And he's like, I'd really like you to work with him as well, not only Monday through Friday, but also Saturday and Sunday. And I'm thinking, that sounds like hell for the kid. Like that, like I love your like I'm thinking in my side of my head, I love your kid and I love being able to work with him. But that just doesn't
That's
sound
all.
like an optimal situation for anybody. So I just kindly like responded back to him, I'm so honored that you would think, of me to be able to be in that, type of a position to work with him, 7 days a week. However, because I do work late into the evenings, I oftentimes don't have time for my own family on those days. And so I reserve the weekends completely for them. So unfortunately, I have to turn you down for Saturdays and Sundays. Um, Hope you understand. And he was like, oh, yeah, totally. No, I know, no, no, I totally get it. I totally get it. And so that, when I kind of put it that way, it was just like me having to stay strong because it could have been easy just to say yes to the money, but then that would have
Yeah.
meant that I had to say no to my family by saying yes to Saturdays and
Well,
Sundays.
and sometimes we think, oh, it's just a 25-minute class or an hour of the day. So I'll just take this one. But what I find is that one jacks up your day
Yeah.
worse than if you have a chunk of them, And so it's almost like I learned the hard way, like it's almost worth just saying no to,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think time boundaries too,
And
they kind of play into like the amount of time that you spend with a child, like how much time you think you're going to need with them. And if the
Mhm.
parent isn't willing to move forward with that amount of time, like I just had to say no to a client because I knew they were going to need 2 hours of instruction a week because they had severe dyslexia. And the school is just discovering it right now. I did my screener. I'm like, oh no, this kid is definitely qualifying for severe dyslexia. Like he doesn't even look like a kid that's like just because there's a range, right? I'm like, he is severe. He's gonna need 4 30-minute sessions a week. I don't have that in my schedule. I'm gonna have to pass him on. Would I have made it work in my schedule? Probably, but it would have gone over my time boundaries.
Mhm.
And so
mhm.
I had to decline and refer him out to another person that I deeply cherish and know will be able to meet his needs.
Mhm. Yeah.
and and that's one of the really cool things for me about having time boundaries is it's another way that I'm able to then refer out to other people. It's like I can't, you know, I can't necessarily take this student because either they're in a time zone that, you know, I that conflicts with my time boundaries, or, you know, something else with the time doesn't work. But I know this person in this country that this would be a perfect match for them, and it often is just a match made in heaven. So, and that makes my heart so happy.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. All right, location boundaries. I am location bound. Like I only want to work online from now on. Like I'm past the point of trying to appease people wanting to do in person. Sure, you can come to my house. Like, nope, I'm completely against it. I want to do a little bit more traveling in my life and want to be able to make sure that I have a schedule and a business that allows me to travel whenever I want to be able to travel, whether I want to do workcations or whatever the case may be. I don't want to have my tutoring business be something that slows me down from being able to do that. And so I've actually had to turn down some clients who are like, "Well, I only want we're only looking for in person." I actually said to a guy the other day, I said, um, "Right now I only have one time slot open. It's 7 o'clock at night. I feel like a 7 o'clock at night session would work better online than it would in person because it would be from 7 to 8. You're getting late. At least with 7 to 8, you can kind of still be relaxing at home and all of that, not have to drive anywhere." Um, but I'm like, I only do online right now. Like that's all I'm taking. So it sounds like right now it might not be a good fit. He's like, "Oh, no, 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 we'll try the online."
Mhm.
And I was like, "All right, we can try it," and it worked fine. But I think sometimes like people think that because they when it comes to their location boundaries with only wanting to be online, that if people say that they want in person and you say, "I'm only taking online students right now," that they think they're going to lose that client. But sometimes that client wants to work with you even more because you
Mhm.
actually kept your boundary. What about you guys? Do you do any in-person tutoring or have any of those kinds of issues with people?
Yeah, so I have in-person tutoring and I find it helpful because actually sometimes it's like almost hybrid. Like sometimes they're in person and it like works well for them too. Like one day the boy will come and then the other day doesn't. But I
Mhm.
just set up from the clear front. We will have tutoring if I could be online if I'm out of town and you're responsible
Mhm.
for showing up. So it's not like, oh, we don't want to do it online and then I have to lose that cut and stuff. So I just set that up from the beginning. Like, this is a perk for being local, but this is the stipulation of
Yeah.
doing it. So,
Yeah. And that allows you to have that freedom and that flexibility that you want, right?
exactly. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I might have to adopt that, Audrey. I love that way of doing it. That's
Yeah.
really, really great. Because I also have a few people that will request in person, and sometimes I'm able to, convince them to, you know, okay, just come to the consultation and and then we'll assess your child because I work with high schoolers in Spanish. I often will do an assessment to see where they are, and even sometimes with the younger students as well. So um just try the assessment online, see how it goes, see how your child does with it. And then, once they see it, they're often willing to try the tutoring online.
Mhm.
How that sometimes goes. But if they still want to do it in person, I'm usually okay with that. As long
Mhm.
as it works in both of our schedules.
Yep. And
But
that's
I'll
for
have
you
to
guys to know, right?
yeah, I'll have to I'll have to try that, Audrey, though.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
works really well because then, and it's kind of a win-win because most of my kiddos have had a reason to need to go online because of life. So it's like they've experienced that need. And then I've also have lost a couple local because they didn't want to do it online and they didn't want to come like just some of the things. And so it's like, okay, you have that option. And so you give it to them, and that's the
Mhm.
loveliness of boundaries. And then you don't have to beat yourself up with. And I think that's what it comes down to, knowing what you want and what you like. Because I like
Mhm.
having the kids come in my home, some of them. And so you really just have to figure out what you want and then stick within those boundaries.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't mind in the beginning of my business. Even when my kids were little, I didn't mind people coming to my
Mhm.
house and then going from like an in-person student to an online student, but they did have to come to my house. So I was like
Right.
this was where they needed to come. And now inside of my house, I have an actual like I've always had an office, but even like trying to just do my work in my office versus like bringing my work all over the house. Do you guys have a dedicated workspace in your home?
So I have a place where I have an office space and I do most of my teaching, but I found like working on like things to grow my business beyond just the tutoring and like the blogging and stuff sometimes because I'm so much in front of my office. I found like my kitchen island is a good place to work on like writing the blog or doing a project and stuff. So I kind of have two spots that kind of
Yeah.
get me the zone of the different parts of the business. So
Yeah, that's so funny that you say that because I have a special spot in my living room that I sit when I'm working
Yeah.
on my business, and it's because it's close to, like, the cord, but, like, it's
Yeah.
also close to the fireplace, but then when I'm actually sitting in my living room doing other things, I sit in a completely different spot. Like, it sounds so
Mhm.
weird,
Yeah.
but it's like, that's no, that's my work spot. I'm not going if I go
Yeah.
there, I'm gonna have to work. Like, but
Yeah.
if I'm not over there, it's not weird, but I
It
think it
is
helps to
weird.
kind of
And
make boundaries, like, for your business.
yeah.
Your
Well,
work
and
from home
I have
days.
to
Yeah.
brainstorm too, like, when am I getting stuck? Because I actually in the same office, like, in front of my desktop, I had a place set up and I'm like, "Ooh, that's where I'll do my blogging and stuff." But it wasn't enough separation, and I would get back on, like, actual tutoring stuff instead of building business stuff. And those who tutor can make sense of that, whenever you get to that point. And so I had to make a little bit more of a boundary within that part of my business. So
And I'm curious, with your office, do you have a wall in front of you, in front of your desk?
yeah, so in front of my desk, there's a wall, and then behind me is my green screen. And then to the left, I have my window. So there's like I don't know, I'm bad with measurements, but there's a gap in front of my computer or what my wall. Like my desk isn't right next to my wall. So there's a gap.
Yeah, because
So
there's like, what is the word? It's that Japanese word for setting up rooms,
mhm.
and the most creativity. It's not Zen, but it's something like that. And I can't
Okay,
think of the
interesting.
word. So what I ended up doing in the beginning is I actually turned my desk facing the room, the open part of the
Yeah.
room, so that my it said that like your ideas would be bouncing off the wall, like literally bouncing off the wall if you have a wall in front of you. But if you have a room, so that probably would be why you enjoy doing your creative stuff of writing blogs and that stuff inside of your kitchen at your island because
Because it's
of the
more open.
space.
My kitchen's more,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. I bet
Yeah.
that's why. That's
Yeah, I bet that's what
interesting.
it is really, really interesting, and I was like, "Oh, I never want my ideas to be bouncing off the wall." Like, that just sounds like a
Exactly.
terrible like, that sounds like banging my head on the wall, right? Like, I never want that to
Yeah.
happen, I don't wanna be, like, devoid of ideas and that kinda stuff. How about for you, Beth? Do you
Yeah,
have,
and
like, a
that kind of makes
specific dedicated space?
I do, and in my new setup that I'm getting very soon, I will have an even more dedicated space because I'll have an actual office and I'm so excited.
Yay! That
So
is
yeah.
very exciting. One day I'm gonna have a big girl office. That's like what I tell people. Like I do have an office in my house. It is a dedicated space that we've called my office, but like it was never designed as an office. My kids call it a hallway. So
Yeah.
but it's not a hallway. Just so if you guys are like picturing me, it's not a hallway. It really is a room. There's just a door there and there's a door there and there's a door over there. So it's like people are constantly walking through it, which is why they call it a hallway. But yeah, one day I'm gonna have like one of those like big people offices, like where a house where you just have like an office, like it was actually designed that way.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Mhm.
It's gonna happen. Next important boundary, payment boundaries. Oh my gosh, I didn't have any payment boundaries set up in the beginning. Did you guys have any payment boundaries set up in the beginning? It was kind of like if I get paid, yay. Yeah. Did you guys do like invoices and that kind of stuff?
I use Tutorbird and
Uh-huh.
I send out the automatic invoice. I don't take their credit card and enter it where it's automatically in the system, but it's done pretty well, like just sending out their invoices and then they either pay at the beginning of the month or monthly or at the beginning of each week. I give them both options
Mm-hmm.
as long as we don't have issues with the weekly ones. So, and I
Mm-hmm.
haven't really had any problems.
That's great. That's great. I love when I hear that. Because I did struggle in the beginning and I was chasing down my money. Like at some point in time, like I was actually doing the manual invoices and then people wouldn't pay on time
Uh,
and then I would get stiffed. And even my good clients, at one point in time, like somebody, even if they were my best paying client, was always the last month of their tutoring they would not pay me or I'd be chasing down my money, and it was such an uncomfortable, awkward situation to be in, and I'm like, "I've gotta come up with a better way to do this," and that's when I decided, "Let me figure out how to do automatic payments," and I figured it out with PayPal back in, like, 2012, and I was like This is amazing. This is amazing. I love this. And, it just it changed everything for me, and it was like, okay, and I found that, like, when I had to have a conversation to change my payment, people had a hard time, but when I told them right out of the gate,
Yeah.
"Here is how payment works." I wrote it down for them, they could read about it, um, and I even send them a letter that says how payment works, so they know exactly how it works. Open that up, obviously, if you wanna read it, but I actually already have their credit card before then, before they even get to the point and say yes. So, it gets charged as soon as we on the first day that we have scheduled for sessions, and it's charged for the whole month, and I gotta tell you, that was just a game changer for my business because I never have to be sitting on top of are people paying me or not paying me. How about for you,
Yeah.
Beth?
Yeah, I was trying to think back to the very because I thankfully I found you pretty early on in my business and changed my system, but I was trying to think back to the very early days of my business. And I was just taking payment any any way I could possibly get it.
Yep.
And I had no boundaries whatsoever. And you constantly feel like you're chasing it down. That's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
And it just creates this like kind of awkwardness between you and the client, and it's just
Mhm.
it's not a good system. So yeah, and also I was on a lot of the platforms and stuff, and a lot of the tutoring platforms, and they kind of
They have
tie
their
you
own
down.
rules. Yeah.
Yeah, they tie you down to systems that aren't always the easiest systems. So now, I use PayPal and have it either on auto payment, like a subscription kind of thing,
Mhm.
or the auto invoice, and both have been amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
I know
love.
on Tutorbird, since I don't like gathering their information, I don't know why. I just like I don't want to touch
Yeah,
their
me
credit card
neither.
information, but I do charge a $10 late fee. And there's a way to set it up in Tutorbird and it will charge them. And
Mhm.
so that's in the contract and it's like, okay, payments due here if it's not. So that kind of, like people
It
have
does.
to do that. That kind of like is another
It's an
alternative of
incentive
helping.
for them to pay on time.
Mhm,
Yeah.
exactly.
I was
Yeah.
real scared to take credit cards too in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was, and then all of a sudden I started doing it, I'm like, "Oh, this is game changing." Like,
Yeah.
well, why would I do it any other
Maybe I
way?
need
Like,
to
that's
start
amazing.
next. I have two clients assessments coming up. Maybe I need to just from the get-go take their information and be
Yeah.
brave.
Be brave, you can do it, you could do it. Honestly, you just take their credit card, and be like, yeah, and it's not as scary as you think, like, you're scared to make a mistake. If you make a mistake, what do? You give a refund.
Right. Yeah.
It's not the
Yeah.
end of the world, right? So it's
Yeah.
all good. I know a lot of people have I know you have to go, Audrey, so I appreciate you coming and joining us, and thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts and ideas with us.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you too. I know one boundary that a lot of people try to set in the beginning is I refuse to pay credit card fees. So I will, I'm going to tell people that I only accept money like by Venmo. And I just think, you know, this is clearly somebody who's not charging, I feel like, enough for their tutoring services that they have to get that
Mhm.
nitty gritty because it's a cost of doing
Mhm.
business. And when you can automate these things, it is worth the price of admission. Like, I never have to go on in. Like, once a month, I just double check my numbers and make sure that everything's working out in balance, but I don't have to sit there and I chase down my money. I don't have to remind people. I don't have to it's all just automatically taken care of, and those are business expenses. Every single one of those fees is a business expense. It's not like you're having to pay extra taxes on that money. And if in order for you to feel comfortable to use like those types of services, think about how little you have to like increase your service rate in order to really
Mhm.
pay for that, right? So instead of maybe charging $95 an hour, maybe I charge 100. Instead of charging $50 an hour, maybe I charge 55. Don't say it's
Right.
because of the credit card fees. That is terrible. Like because what that says is it kind of gives this idea of like I'm really petty in my business and I scrimp and save in every single possible way. So if I scrimp and save in every single possible way, what does that mean about me as a tutor? What kind of corners will I try to cut in my tutoring with the students that I work with? I don't know. I just don't feel like it gives a good professional feel to be that nitty-gritty about those kinds of fees. What about you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I ever since I started working with PayPal, I almost said Tutorbird. I love Tutorbird as well. But ever since I started working with PayPal, even, I started working with them when I was charging less than half of what I charge now. And I never worried about the fees. It was always worth it to me to
Mhm.
have that peace of mind that, I was getting my money when I needed it, and when I was doing the services. And yeah, it was always worth it to me to have that peace of mind, that also that it was, easy for me because I didn't have to worry about it, but it was easier for the client too because they didn't have to worry about, like, did I pay the tutor this month? You know what I mean? So, and
Yeah.
that's how I phrase it when I do my
Peace of mind.
consultation.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah, I say, this is how I do payment. It's easy for you, it's easy for me, and it's great. So, and
Mhm.
people are, you know, we work with busy parents. They don't want to
Mhm.
have to worry about another detail in their lives. And so it's
Yeah.
great for them.
They do tell me that they do love how easy it is to work with me because I have all those systems
Mhm.
set up in place, and, um, so it's funny because in the beginning, we think, "Oh, people aren't gonna wanna do it. They're gonna feel like really like we're shady people," and really, it's the complete opposite. It's like, "Thank you for taking that off my plate, and making sure that you get paid each month because now I don't have to worry about that."
And think about how many services that we pay for that do this. It's I'd say it's the norm rather than the exception
Mhm.
for services these days. Um, so I mean, I I pay for lots of things these days that have, just automatic charges every
Yeah.
month. It's like, oh, okay, my Hulu subscription got
Yeah.
paid, my ConvertKit got paid,
Yeah.
random things.
Yeah.
But lots of things have that model, and we don't bat an eye.
Mhm.
So why should we,
Yeah, people are
feel
used
any
to it by now. It's not like it's a new payment system or
uh,
plan or anything like that. It's new to you, but it's not new to them, and it's new to you as being a service to accept payment that way, but it's not new to them as a customer for paying that way. So that it's not odd for you to even, I think, suggest it. Speaking of, we were talking about TutorBird, which is our all-in-one platform. They're also the sponsor of our channel. And you can get 3 months free with TutorBird. Check out a little bit more about TutorBird.
TutorBird lets you schedule lessons, take attendance, collect payments, and much more, all in one place.
And that's all you have to do. Go to tutorbird.com/Joanne-Kaminski and you'll get that 3 months absolutely free. And check out those automatic payments. TutorBird is fantastic for being able to set up those boundaries so that you can get paid on time every time. We have one set of boundaries left to talk about. That's the communication boundaries. Um, how do you set expectations around response times, like, for your clients? What kinda do you have any rules for yourself on that?
So I do set it up in my I have this letter. It's kind of a letter. It's more like a document that I send to every single client after the consultation. It has I phrase it as expectations for myself and expectations for my clients. Um and communication is one of them. I think I have it phrased as, if you send me an email, um I'll respond within 24 to 48 hours during business days.
Mhm.
And then also I but I always tell them also that for me personally, if you send me a and we might be similar in this in this way from what you've told me before, but if you send me a text, I'm much more likely to get to that sooner than the 24 to
Yeah.
48 hours mark.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I tell.
I always, yeah, and that's what I tell them is that my preferred communication method is through texting,
Yeah.
because that puts them at the front of the line of the people that I need to get back to.
Oh, I like that phrasing.
Yeah, I just
That's
came up
really,
with it just now.
oh, very nice.
But that's how
Oh,
I'm gonna rephrase it as that inside of a letter because I think they need to realize that, like, look, if you text me, I'm gonna get to that message a lot faster than I'm gonna get to an email because I have to actually go into my email, whereas a text, I'm gonna see that message pop on up into my phone the next time that I lift it up. It's gonna show me that I got a text from somebody, and then I can respond to it when I deem necessary. And I usually respond to my text within 12 hours or less. If it's something that
oh.
needs my immediate attention, then I will go in and I will
Mhm.
obviously respond immediately. I just had somebody who texted me about an IEP, right? Like that doesn't need my immediate response.
Yeah.
So I'll go back in and take a look at that later when I have a little bit more time and I'll be able to take care of that.
I also tell them that if it's something that they need to that they'd like to have a conversation about, their child is either doing really well or struggling and they'd like to talk to me about it, or they got a report from the teacher that they'd like to talk to me about, that kind of a thing that might necessitate a longer conversation. We can
Mhm.
either schedule that um you know at the beginning or end of their child's tutoring session, or if it's longer than a few minutes, it might be best to schedule a separate conversation, and
Yeah.
I give them some times that would work for my
Yeah.
schedule to do that.
Yeah.
So
What
it's been
I
helpful.
love about online tutoring is the how when I went to their houses,
Mm,
the
mhm,
conversations ended up being really long, and it took, like, longer for me to get out of the house and to kind of, like, remove myself from the situation because I didn't have another student afterwards, like, I guess if I had another student afterwards, I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I gotta head on out, I have another student I have to get to." They probably
mhm.
wouldn't have sucked up as much time, but because I really didn't have anything going, if they were talking to me, I would just stay and talk and chat and do all that kinda stuff, and really that if this is a business model, it's great to be able to build relationships, but 5 minutes is enough time to do that. Like, you don't
Right.
have to spend, like I was doing, 30 to 45 minutes having this really long discussion, which sounded exactly the same from one session to the next, right? Like, the
Mm,
teacher has said this, or the teacher has said that, and it's, like, going on and on and on, and, um, or a plate session or whatever the case may be, and now I don't really have parents who are asking to communicate so frequently that I have to even make a rule about what my boundary is around communication. Like there are some people in some businesses where they have to actually set it up and say, "Hey, if you want to schedule some time, they charge for that." Whereas um, it's so infrequent with online tutoring that I don't even have to worry about that. It's like they just needed to chat to me about they've got this IEP coming on up. So they just wanted information so that they can be prepared for the IEP. Like, no big deal. Right? Like, great. That happens like what, once a year? Like, it's not like it's happening all of the time or anything like that. I do let them know that they can expect me. Like, I tell them right away, I'm not the type of tutor who's going to give you feedback at the end of each session because there are
mhm.
tutors who are and they'll say here's what we worked on, here's what we did. I'm not that kind of tutor. They hired me because they trust me to do what it is that I need to do, and those are the people that I like working with. But I do communicate with them and say I will touch base with you every 3 to 6 months when I do a reassessment so you know exactly where your child's at. If you need information in between that time frame, just message me. Just email me, let me know, and I'd be more than happy to provide you any information that you need. And I think that works well. Like they understand right out of the gate that they're not going to get that frequent. So they're not like sitting there like, "Hey, I haven't heard from Joanne in a while. I wonder why."
Right,
Right? It's
right.
not because I'm ignoring them. It's just because I have so many students and I'm focusing my time on working with their child versus communicating with the parent, which is going to have a bigger ROI, right? Working with a child
For
versus spending
sure.
time crafting emails for the parent.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm like you, I would never charge for, those little meetings with the parent or, crafting a report or anything like that. Yeah, and yeah, I definitely don't provide feedback after every session, but definitely anytime a parent needs it, I'm more than happy to, give a report of what we've done and all
Mhm.
of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's super easy to do.
Yeah,
So
I think but at least, like, we're both communicating what that is and what that looks like, right? And that's all done. Like, I have a beginning letter that just explains all of that, and I know you do too, that explains all that, so they have that information right out of the gate, and they understand, like, how we work, and they don't have to guess at it and figure it out. It's clearly stated so that they know, and if you can even communicate it verbally as well, I think that helps with them understanding it, like, verbal, reading it through, that just gives you more chances of making sure that they understand, like, how you do business and go forward there. So I think that really, really helps. And you guys, these boundaries are really important. They're important for your health. They're important for you to not feel burned out. They're important for you to, make sure you get paid on time and you can financially support yourself with running your business. All of these boundaries, they come so that you can run a more effective business. So knowing what those boundaries are so that you can run a profitable online tutoring business is super important. So I'm so excited that you guys got to join us today and hear all about this. My goal is to empower you to be able to reach more students so that you can make more money in your tutoring business. So thanks for joining us today and enjoy the rest of your day.